Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning and good evening to you, for those of us who are joining from other geographies. Welcome to our webinar from Foundit. My name is Yogesh Krishnan, and I look after product marketing and lead management at Foundit. And it's really exciting to be here because we are on our series called RecRoute, which is a series of webinars that is made specifically for the recruiter community at heart to talk about how can the recruitment community as a whole be more informed in terms of their careers, the way that they do the work, the way that they find talent, the way that folks are able to get candidates to come on board and really get hold of what you have to offer. We have had a few webinars in the past, and the series has been going on for a few months now, and we've had some exciting topics that we have built so far, and we hope to continue on that. And our guest today is Vinaya Bansal, who is the co-founder of the Predictive Strategy Group. While I'll allow Vinaya to introduce himself in just a bit, we just go through a few more slides talking about what we want to do with the webinar series and talk a little bit about Foundit, formerly known as Monster as well. So Monster APAC and EMEA and Middle East is now called Foundit. We have went through a rebranding exercise a few months ago, and we have had about 50,000 plus recruiters have trusted us for their hiring requirements, and several of you who are on the call have trusted us as well. So we want to thank you for being part of our family. I want to thank you for joining this webinar and really hoping that we get a lot of value out of this. As we have gone through the entire rebranding exercise, we've also started to think about what are the kind of offerings that we can have to really boost the way recruiting teams and talent acquisition teams can find the right type of candidates, get the right type of context in terms of figuring out who's the best sort of employee that would be needed for the organization. So to that end, we did a very soft launch of a product that we called Foundit Edge, and we believe that it's quite revolutionary in nature, where we can help where talent acquisitions teams can find active as well as passive candidates. And what that means is you're no longer bound by a candidate putting up their profile on our page, on our database, but instead you can look at candidates across the pipeline. You can, there are engagement tools that are built to attract candidates. You can write to them, you can create specific drip campaigns and track these responses. So we have a we just launched this tool very recently, and we would love for you to be able to see if we would love to hear from you if you want to if you'd like to check it out and get a quick demo, and we are happy to do that for you. So I'll just launch a quick poll right now to just see if you might be interested in this. Please do let us know, and one of the team members would be reaching out to you. All right. We have also launched a state of recruitment survey very recently to try to figure out what can we actually start. What are the prime movers in the market in terms of trying to figure out what are the key trends that are there. What is it that recruiters are looking for? What are the challenges that folks are facing? And we had this survey run over the last month, and we've got some great responses. 8 out of 10 of you of the ones who have already responded says that data continues to play a huge role. We've had tremendous response in terms of trying to figure out how do you look at ATS tools? How do you look at growth from a recruiter perspective? So we have some great insights that have already started coming in. We would love for you to take this survey. So if you could head over to the link, I will send a link over to you. I will send a link over to you in chat just after this. And if you could answer that survey, that would be great. As part of our regular research as part of the regular data studies that we do, we have also tried to figure out what's happening in terms of fresher hiring. The demand for freshers has increased pretty much over the last 6 months, and there's an increasing amount of share of job postings, both from recruitment and staffing agencies and the IT industry, specifically for fresher hiring. Most of the postings that we saw were for in-office roles, while the remaining were for a hybrid and work-from-home roles. So we've had some insights there. We have a foundit insights tracker that is out, and we will be sharing the link to that with you as well. Now, let's get into RecRoute. Let's get into the real reason why we are here today. I'm really happy to bring in Vinaya Bansal to this call today and share some of his views. Vinaya is a co-founder of the Predictive Strategy Group. It's a think tank, if you want to think about it in terms of really helping organizations figure out how to start thinking about how to really put together strategies to level up their talent acquisition game. And Vinaya, I'm really looking forward to your session. We're going to be talking about how effective hiring and retention is built on a very scientific basis. How we look at behavior in terms of us as recruiters, how we understand candidates, and really looking forward to your words. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. Vinaya, I will hand over the screen over to you, and maybe you can do a quick introduction about what TPSG is about, some of the research that you have done, and some of the folks that you have worked with, and some of the learnings that you have had. So over to you, Vinaya.
Thank you, Yogesh. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Let me share my screen. Is it visible, the screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Awesome. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, hello guys. I know you will not be able to respond back, and it's sort of a weird webinar. It looks like one of more of a one-way talk. So generally I'm more used to the meeting part, not the webinar part, but I hope I'll be able to do some justice to this. Great. So this is our session today, which is about decoding behavioral and cognitive science. And the reason for decoding it, reason for understanding it, not to focus on understanding people per se. We don't want to do a PhD on people. We are not research students, right? We want to understand how we can deliver our key aspect, our KRA of getting the right talent into an organization. How can we do that better and more effective using this science, and how are companies actually doing it? Progressive companies, how they're using it and why are they leveraging it, right? So I've tried to simplify this, as far as possible, considering that some of you would be very new to this concept. Some of you would have already undergone some sort of training. Some of you would have already using, one or the other tool in the market, right? So, but I've tried to make this, with respect to people who may not have got initiated to this science. Okay. So the agenda would be, first we'll be trying to understand what are the issues with current hiring process. Why do we need to even look at the cognitive and behavioral science? After all, for last more than 100 years, we have been recruiting people, right? And companies have been progressing. We have been finding the right people. May happen by mistake, but it's happening still. But things are going on. So why do we need to relook at it, right? Why behavioral and cognitive parameters are important for hiring? Why not something else? Why not SQ? Why not IQ? Something else. Why are we looking at these two components? And how do we then actually go about finding the right person? Using this science, right? So this is me. As you can see, a little resume on my side. I've got more than 2 decades now of industry experience, worked with various industries, various sectors, and before predictive index in terms of, happened to me, and I happened to read my own report back in 2010. And when I realized that I am in a wrong profession, after reading my own report. So that was back in 2009 and 10, and I was heading the business development team back then for a startup in climate change space. So very, very different thing. And that was the first time that I realized that I am actually a very introverted, not only an introverted person, I'm a very, very, very introverted person, high degree introverted person. And for a good 12 years of my professional life, I have been doing business development. Right. And you can see my qualification, which is also the formal qualification is also happens to be in MBA marketing. Right. So this is a story, because of which the realization happened. And I started, we along with my partner, Eva Agarwal, we started this company, TPSG, and we realized that this is one of the biggest things we are missing. So the joke is that in 2001, if Saint Gobain had this tool, when they came and picked me up from the engineering college, they would have realized that I'm a research person, So the name of my profile is it's called scholar. And you see, there's a symbol book to it, so I'm a thorough research guy. And after 3 rounds of interviews and group discussion, and I don't know what all they had at that point of time, they thought that I'm a sales guy. And they took me into a sales function, right? If they had this simple tool, then even without employing so much of money that they paid me in terms of interviewing, calling me to different states, 5 rounds, and hours and hours of interview, top management time would have been spared, if they would have done this and they would have realized, boss, this is a research guy, not a sales guy. So this is as simple as this, there is no rocket science into it, which we'll see in a while, right? So now we work in last decade, we have been working with who's who in Indian industry. Why I'm sharing this is not to impress you, but to tell you that, this is very, very well tried, tested science. We use a tool. There are many tools. One of the tools that we work with is, Predictive Index, which is a company based out of Boston, for last 70 years doing this. And we work with MHS, which is based out of Canada. So in IT, I believe there are more IT guys out here, recruitment doing, and IT is one of the biggest recruiters in India. We have been working with a lot of hardcore IT companies, including startups, right? So it's very, very relevant, irrespective of the industry that one is, and irrespective of the level within an organization. And we'll see in a while that why I'm saying so. Okay, so, we have been writing on this topic, for last decade on various, and our thoughts have been covered with various, Economic Times, Hindu, and, Times of India from time to time. Now I'll come to the meat of it, which is, what is our current hiring process, right? If it would have been a two-way communication, then I would have loved to ask you that why I have put this figure as far as hiring goes, right? But we understand what's going on. This is, in a nutshell, how we are still doing hiring. Irrespective of the progress that we have made, from pigeons to landlines to, pagers to mobile phones today, irrespective of the kind of computing power that we have developed, but our recruitment practice has still not changed over the years, right? So that has shown a lot of, unlike many other things, it has shown a lot of resilience, good thing, resilience, but, there's a lot of stubbornness also in it that it's not willing to change. But this is how we select a candidate, right? They're guys we get who are managers, line managers, ask them to do it. If it's an important job, entry level, one interview. If it's a mid-level, top level job that we're recruiting for, then we'll have multiple rounds of interview. Google was famous to have more than 20 rounds of interviews, right? 20 or 25 rounds of interview. And point is that we ask those line managers to do an interview who actually are not trained in interviewing, correct? They have been interviewed themselves. That's why, and they pick up a technique over the years and they keep interviewing. So we saw that one is not able to do, two is not able to do. So keep putting people up, keep layering up the interviews. But at the end of the day, no one has a full knowledge of what the elephant is, and everyone comes with a perception. Then there is a commonality drawn who say whichever perception prevails, we go with it. But perception at the end of the day is perception. And that's why the recruitment happens, more often than not in a wrong direction. In fact, the industry figures says, the research figures says more than 85% of the recruitment goes wrong, be it inside or be it outside. So inside means internal promotions whatever we are doing. So question is, why is it ineffective? Why is it ineffective? What's going down here, wrong here, especially in today's scenario, right? So things were stable, a few decades ago, they were stable. The things, were very different from what they are now. But let's look at in today's scenario. See what is essentially happening. We have overused some of the tools, so two of the tools that are very prominently used in recruitment is resumes and interviews, right? They have been traditionally used, but now it's been overused, right? They have lost the significance. They are not as significant as they were in yesteryears because of the complexity of the jobs have increased, because of complexity of identifying the people has increased, because the volume from which we have to bring out and find out the people have increased. Earlier there were a handful of graduates coming. You have to pick up from those handful. Today we have by tons and tons, of colleges are rolling out tons and tons of, graduates every year, right? So these two tools, though still relevant, but are not as effective as they were few decades ago, right? Now we understand, see what is happening with resume. Resume is an advertisement, right? People are getting better and better in advertisement. There are softwares which will churn out the best CVs for you, right? Then you would be going through those CVs. They will be going through those CVs. This is a particular heat map, and you all are recruiters. This is a research done on recruiters, that how they look at the CV, the professional recruiters. And, you see there are just some portions where you can see the eye moves. Now, even this is gone. Now the CV is also going to be screened by softwares, right? So a software is making a CV, a software is screening the CV. Correct? So there is something which has gone wrong out here. When recruiters also see, the research shows that when you are actually, going through tons and tons of the CV, it takes only 6 seconds to go through a CV and put it in a pile, that whether you're going ahead with it or you're not going ahead with it, right? And our whole focus is on educational qualification and professional experience. Those are the two parts where you see in the eye heat map also the biggest focus that goes on, right? Now the next thing comes is obviously our interview processes. Resume to anyways, they are still one, but interview is like 1, 2, round 3, round 4, round 5. 2001, I went through 3 rounds of interview. That was in 2001, right? When we started recruiting, when I was head of the business development, we easily did 4, 5 rounds of interview. At some point of time, to go back to my HR and say, why are we doing these many rounds of interviews anyways? In these many rounds of interview, even I won't have been able to make it in your company, right? But then there is nothing left. We don't know what else to do to find out the right guys. So that is the only thing that is left. But the problem with it is, again, the same. How much time does it take research being done on this? And this would be available on Google if you search it out. How much time actually it takes to form an opinion whether you will hire this guy or you will not hire this guy by an interviewer. It just takes 10 to 15 seconds. No joke. It just takes 10 to 15 seconds, which essentially means if I'm knocking on the door and a candidate is saying, okay, may I come in, sir? And interviewer said, yes, please come in, sit down. Maybe 10 or 15 seconds have gone in this, right? So this is the time when the subconscious mind has made a decision whether you're liking this guy or you're not liking this guy. And the rest 45 minutes or 1 hour, it goes in rationalizing that, the decision that has been taken, right? So what has happened is there are a lot of biases that work onto it. There are a lot of biases which are unknowingly the frameworks that we have made in mind, subconscious mind, right? This could be conscious, unconscious, that are working on it. And the biggest thing why interviews go wrong is as an interviewer, you end up selecting people. You end up shortlisting people. It's human trait. It's not that only recruiters do it. Anyone, any human, be they are, experts in psychology, still they would do the same thing, is they end up picking up people whom they like, not whom they need. So interviewing is a process of finding the likability, right? And different people, different interviewers will have different likability. That's why the same candidate, would not be able to sail through all the interviews. Right? So that is a problem. We need to understand, we need a selection process from which we can find out that, okay, this is what we need and this is what the person is bringing to the table. But this is happening the other way around. We are getting people whom someone likes, right? So these two things, when combined together, creates a mess. And that's why, as again, if you have to see the research, the efficacy of an interviewing process is not more than 17 to 20%, right? So what do we do? Or let's get into, one more thing, common example so that you can relate with it. In an interview, someone comes and has a tattoo, is wearing an earring, right? Has got a different haircut. Won't our biases kick in? Automatically, right? Let's say you are from my generation or generation older than me, not the generation Z. Then the biases will kick in automatically. Oh, this guy is going to be too hard to control. This guy is, would not be sincere, is too casual, and all that stuff will come in. Another common thing happens, let's, not go into this, but let's say we find when we're interviewing, we find a person is very talkative, and he's been articulate, has been able to answer all the questions, effectively deal with it. So what do we think? That this guy is very confident. This is what generally happens. If we are in interview process, we feel someone is not responding, very openly, then what we'll think, this guy is not confident, right? That's the feedback. Then we'll go back and give to HR. This guy was confident, this guy was not confident, because the yardstick to find a confidence level is how much this person was speaking and how this person was speaking. I've never flunked a, sales interview. But that did not mean that I'm an, extroverted personality, or, I am, on another plane, I'm very high on confidence. That's something else also. Being a loudmouth does not necessarily mean that someone is confident. But because we have wrong yardsticks, we end up making wrong decisions based on it. Again, making the interview process as ineffective, right? So a joke, so at the end of the day, then we'll end up hiring 80 to 90% wrong hires, and then it may be just our gut feeling was just indigestion, right? Next time we'll have a better digestive system. So we have to go beyond this. We have to bring science, objectivity, which can cut through the biases, unconscious and conscious biases, and also bring uniformity throughout the interview process, irrespective of the panel, right? So how do we do this? Is for this, we have to understand that what do we mean by behaviors and cognitive, right? Okay, if you can put in a chat, I'm going to show you next slide. If you can quickly put in your chat, what do you see on the screen? What do you see on the screen? I'll give you 10 seconds or 15 seconds for it. What do you see on the screen? Yogesh, do you get some responses?
Yes, we are getting the responses. They're varying from a side profile of a lady watching something. But we have an old lady and a young woman. We have a woman with a white scarf, and we have a girl with a scarf.
Great.
Sort of around those.
Very nice. So you see, this non-living picture has created so many responses, right? Someone is going to see an old lady here. Someone is going to see a beautiful young lady. I'll allow you a little more. Then you'll see a snow-clad mountain and, feathers and what all, right? So you see, these are all perceptions. Now, same pic, everyone's monitor is having the same pic, but we are having different perceptions about it based on our own framework, mind's framework. Right. Once we tell each other, we may be able to see now, a lot more things, as I've narrated it, but the initial reaction was the same, right? Different people had different reaction. And the beauty is that no one is wrong. Everyone is right, right? But this is what we call a perception. So now in an interview process, we are replacing this picture with the most complicated creation of God, of nature, which is human being. So now we understand why it's such a complex process. What you're doing as an interviewer, as a recruiter, is one of the most complicated thing in the world, right? But unfortunately, it's never seen that way. But that is the truth. So what do we do? how do we remove these perceptions and create more of a one version of truth, right? Now, for that, we'll have to delve into the brain science a little. Our brain, essentially has about 100 billion neurons or 100 billion cells, and a baby's brain, a kid's brain, has the same number of cells as an adult brain. Okay, so that's very interesting. But when a kid is developing, till a kid reaches the age of 2 or 3 years, there is something called each brain cell gets connected with other brain cells through synapses. So each brain cell connects with about 15,000 other brain cells in a kid's brain of a 3-year-old. 15,000. Each brain cell gets connected with 15,000 other brain cells. By the time we grow up, we get into our adolescence, in late adolescent stages, or by the time we become adult, these synapses, these connections actually come down from 15,000 to just 7,000. So each brain cell in an adult is connected with just 6 or 7,000 other brain cells, while each brain cell in kid's brain is connected with 15,000 other brain cells. So this is what is happening. This is called pruning, synaptic pruning. So in a very, very simple language, there are some connections when we grow up, when we form personality, what we say personality, there are some connections which are gone. There are some highways that are built for our signals, to go through our brain. And there are some roads which are like barren lands where the signal would not go, right? So this is what is giving rise to some stable aspects of our personality. So this is giving rise to some stable aspects of our personality, out of which, there are some traits which are very useful for understanding the performance of a person in a job role. Now, to give you a very simple analogy of it, that what is happening in brain is also happens in body. So when we grow, till teenage, our height grows. After that, our height does not grow. Am I right? But there are aspects of a body which changes even beyond teenage. So there are parts of our physicality which become stable after teenage, and there are parts of our personality, for physique, which keeps changing even after teenage. So similarly in personality, similarly in brain, there are aspects which can keep changing throughout life, but there are aspects which become stable, once our formative years are over, that is, teenage of 17 or 18 years of age, right? Now, this is very important because what psychometric is going to do is able to help us understand this part. Now, the part that we are seeing out here is this, what we have been, covering through resumes and interviews in terms of education, knowledge, and experience. Now, what we are really interested is the behavioral and the cognitive drives. This is the stable part of the personality due to the brain research, the brain, what's going on in the brain that I just explained to you in brief, right? Now, these are the stable parts of the personality. What does it mean? Now, this is very, very important. If you forget everything, from this webinar, just take this away as one thing, that there are parts of personality which are stable, which are not going to change after our formative years. And these two of very important stable parts of the personality are behavioral drives and cognitive ability, right? This keeps changing, so you hire a person who would not be knowing Java, but he could know Java when you train them. A guy does not know AI, they'll get to understand AI after you give them enough training. You yourself didn't know how to recruit people when you were fresh out of colleges, but now you know how to recruit people, right? And you keep learning as you go ahead. So this can change. You can train people for this, right? But this is stable. What also means that this cannot be taught. This cannot be changed. So you can hire someone. You can just hire someone for this, but you cannot train people for this. And the paradox is that, most of the time we think the other way around, that we can train people for this once we have got the right qualification. Get me the engineers, get me guys who, know Java, ML, AI, and we'll make them work. That is where the things go wrong. So how do you do this? How do you identify who's the right guy? How do you identify and peek into their behavioral traits and their cognitive ability. So we do this with the help of psychometric assessment. Now, because of science and technology, it has become super easy. It has become super easy to actually take a peek into the mental filters that people have. How would they respond to various stimuli at the workplace? What are their workplace preferences? What are their key motivating needs, which we need to understand for doing various jobs? So why is it again important? So for example, there could be, two engineers. You're going and you picked up from IIT, there are two guys, same qualification, same number of years spent in the college, nothing extra someone has done than the other. But their personalities could be very different. One could be actually out and out talkative, helicopter view guy, multitasker, very achievement oriented, while the other could be a very research oriented guy who like to get into depth of the things, who like to work in the team, who like to be on his own, reserved, right? So different personalities, though they have the same briefcase, same resume. So this is the reason, because this is the thing that will never come up in a resume. This is a thing that even if you will put trained psychologists in an interview panel, they would not be able to figure it out during an interview process, of 1 hour or 1.5 or 2 hours, that what will be the personality traits of these guys. And you'll put 5 psychologists, I'm sure they're going to differ even more than 5 recruiters, on what the personality is of this guy. So how do we do this? We use, thankfully, technology and science. These are, there are various tools available. There are various tools, if you're using any of the validated tools, any of the international tools, they would give you a very good picture of what the science or what the personality this person brings to the table from the work perspective. So, but irrespective of the tool, majorly, these are the 3 components that are very, very important for you as a recruiter. One is a behavioral assessment. The other is a cognitive test. And the third is what this job requires, from these aspects, like a JD, right? So behavioral assessment, so you'll know, I'm calling it behavioral assessment because of the science and the platform we use. People may call it personality assessment, personality test, understanding personality, attitude, different names, right? But essentially, this is going to cover the aspects such as, whether the person is assertive, persuasive, leadership style kya hai, communication style, whether someone is, how good someone is with detailing, whether they like to get into details like a microscope, or they like to get into helicopter vision, whether someone has a very small attention span or they have long attention spans, what is a delegation style, delegation in multitasking or being focused. So various things, right, which could be important from the work perspective. There's nothing right and wrong with it. Often what is misconstrued with respect to psychometric assessment is that it's like a test, pass and fail. In psychometric assessment, which is really a good assessment, I'm not talking about the ones which are bogus, cheap, not well formulated, but the good ones, validated ones, there's no pass and fail. It's about understanding our superpowers, a person's superpower, a person's talents. These all are talents. We are looking at these talents from a work perspective. If we would have in some other industry, we might have been looking at talents such as, how good the voice is, how good the pitch is, how high the pitch is, what is the tonality of the voice, or how good the dance is, what form of the dance step is, how the body moves, what is the flexibility of the body. We don't need those out here. So these are the talents from the work perspective, from the corporate and organizational point of view, right? But these are as good talent as the other talent that we commonly understand in terms of singing, painting, or dancing. Cognitive is very important thing to understand is cognitive is the learning agility, and it is not IQ. So cognitive is not IQ. IQ is not a good predictor of performance, right? Of the success in a job role. But cognitive is the speed at which someone learns. Okay, so think of it as like there's a processor in the computer. So it's our brain's processor, that how quickly our brain would be able to learn and unlearn new things, right? So this includes things like on-the-job learning, how someone applies common sense, how, someone understands other person, what level of complexity a person would be able to deal with, how someone would be adapting to change. All these aspects is very important from the cognitive perspective. This is what is covered in a cognitive. So whenever you hear a cognitive test, generally, technically, it is symbolized by small g. So this is very important aspect from a job perspective. Both these things combined can give you an immense picture of how someone is going to perform in a sales role, in an accounts role, as a coder, in writing, working on a mainframe or a legacy softwares, or coming up with the product development. All these things can be easily understood from these things. Now, the third and very important part in psychometric, which often I see is missed from a lot of systems, but it's present in a few, is a job assessment. Now, this is like your behavioral and cognitive JD. You make functional JDs, that how many years of experience you need, what languages this person should be knowing, what projects this guy has worked on. Similarly, you have a behavioral JD. So this assessment will allow you to understand that what are the behavioral traits that a manager requires in this particular job role, right? Whether he needs a person who's outgoing or he needs a person who's reserved, whether he needs a person who has a high citability, or he needs a person, who could really get into details. What is the core personality person needs? What is the level of learning this person requires to be able to deliver on this particular job role, right? So these are the two things that would be very important, right? And once we do this, then you can actually make the right fitment. So as of now, you're doing a functional fitment, but then you would be able to do a complete fitment. See, what was happening earlier, we were just doing a job fitment out here, and we were making some guesses out here in terms of that how this person is loudmouth, extroverted, loudmouth is, high confidence level, person not speaking, not confident, and things were going wrong. Now what we are doing is, this was our blind side. Now we have, through the system of psychometric, various psychometric, which could be there, we can take a sneak peek, we can take an objective data around what are these behavioral drives, what is an attitude of this guy, what is the personality of this guy, what kind of work this person is going to learn, and how quickly is he able to process things. Is this speed matching what is required for the job? Are these behavioral traits matching what is required for the job? So there is no wrong and right behavioral traits, okay? There is no wrong and right behavioral traits. It's only what is matching the job. So if you put me in FMCG sales, I'll be a disaster. No company would be able to sustain me even for 2 months. They'll immediately know that they have made a mistake. But if you put me in a research role, I could be a really gem of a person. There I could just do things on myself, right? So people, all of us, all of you who are also listening it, you would be good at something. Okay, there would be some superpowers that you all have, right? But its point is, how do you understand it? And how do we place a person in accordance with the superpowers, natural talents, rather than making them struggle and do something which is not aligned naturally to them? Okay. So as I said, always remember that this is an aspect which cannot change. You can just hire it. You cannot train people for it. You cannot take them through workshops. You cannot cajole them. You cannot threaten them, to do this. So if I'm a reserved person, I'll be a reserved person. You cannot threaten me. That threat is not going to make me an outgoing person, right? I better leave the job rather than, because it's beyond me. The way I cannot change my height, I cannot change my internal core nature. So, as an example, as a very, very quick example, this happened with one of our clients, a tech client. They were hiring, they were on hiring spree, and there was a lady and there was a girl who came, just about 2 years of experience. And, she was applying for a hardcore, coder software developer role. And, but her profile, her behavioral profile came out to be something which was very much not at all aligned with the software professional that they were looking for. Right? But it was more like a sales person that they were looking for, and they were not getting, in the regular scheme of things, they were not getting those kind of profiles which they wanted in sales from a behavioral and cognitive perspective. And they found that this girl is really aligned with it, but she was applied for a software role. And, then they actually get back to this lady and they said, what, you are more aligned to this kind of a role that we have based on our internal assessment. Would you like to give it a try? If not, then, you can go back to a coder role, but we think you'll be really successful out there. And she said, I have no experience. Absolutely. I've never even thought of it, but she said, okay, let's give it a try. And you won't believe that within 6 months, she had aced sales with absolutely no experience, but within 6 months, she was one of their best sales person, in the team. And where did it come from? From a candidate who has not even applied for that kind of a role. So that is how you would be able to, what happens when you create an alignment. So for you as a recruiter, it will help you in lot in terms of retention, making the right line, and reducing the whole cycle time. Now, the biggest, okay, this is my last thing that I'll be touching upon. The biggest thing, as fear in recruiting community is that we are not even able to get candidates even today. We are not able to fill in the positions. There is so much of pressure, we have to just give in, and you bring another thing, something called a psychometric assessment, and the life goes for a toss. Now we are getting 6 hours of sleep, then we'll be getting 3 hours of sleep. Correct. So this is what happens. This is the biggest fear I see in recruiting community, but this is a misconception. This is a misconception. It's as good as saying that, oh, if computers will come, then we'll all will become, jobless. That was a fear some time ago, right? If nano will come, all the two-wheelers sales will stop, right? But these things does not happen. These are all fears, and we have to go beyond it. To give you an example, very small example, let's say if this is a regular recruitment cycle that you had, where you had resumes, maybe you had 200 resumes, you made 100 phone calls, then had 50 interviews, and then you selected 10 out of them, right? This was what was happening earlier. Now what is happening is you have introduced, let's say, our system, predictive index, or any other system for psychometric assessment. Now, essentially what is happening, you're still getting 200 resume, but now you have filtered out, you have prioritized, which are the top 100 guys and which are the 100 which I am not interested in, right? And now these are the 100, there's an alignment cognitively and behaviorally. Rather than getting to know at this stage, you have got it right at the beginning. Now, out of this, instead of calling 100 people, you maybe need to only call 50 people. Out of this 50, you may be interviewing just 25 people. So you have reduced the amount of effort and time that is required or time spent in evaluating people. And out of them, you have selected again 10. Okay. But now some, intelligent people out there will say, oh, so what's the difference? We have reduced the time and effort that is required, but finally we are selecting the 10 and 10, correct? But there's a catch there also. Earlier, the 10 that you were selecting, there were 80% failure rate. There was 80% failure rate, either in terms of retention, they were leaving, attrition, or non-performance, or whatever be it. Now you will have 80% success rate. So now what does it do for you as a recruiter? It has reduced the time that you required. So instead of 6 hours, you will get 8 hours of sleep, because the amount of time required for making 10 recruitments has reduced drastically. And also there is a lesser of rework, because when 80 were not fitting in, again they were coming to the recruitment cycle, and again you were doing the same thing, and you were in the vicious circle, never been able to move on to strategic things. Now you don't have to do that rework again and again. So that is how your life improves, and you get out of this vicious cycle of getting the same guy leaving, getting the same guy leaving, getting the same guy. The guy leaves from here, he goes to the other recruiter, they hire him, and then he goes to the third one, and the cycle continues, right? So we all are awesome. It's no one is, if you see from a psychometric perspective, no one is bad. This is a psychometric of normal people. We are not finding, we are not finding abnormalities or abnormal people out here. We all are awesome. It's only about where do we put ourselves in what kind of a role. And you as recruiters, you act like gods, because you have the power to give a direction to someone's career, like someone did to my career back in 2001 as sales, which I never wanted to do, right? But I then 12 years got stuck with it. So please, it is very important to identify your superpowers and be able to align the job roles, because you're in that position, you can do for others, right? Do it for yourself first, and then do for others. If you yourself are in a role which could be, you could be in some other role which could be better served by you, is more aligned with talent, first do that, and then let align others guys when you're recruiting them, right? I like to end with this. This is my favorite quote. I don't know, whatever be the seminar, but I have to bring this up. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. So One, do not judge yourself. First, understand whether you're a fish or a bird or a lion, whatever you are, and then get into that mode. And also do that with those other guys, because once you'll hire people, once you'll hire a fish to fly, then as an organization also, it's not going to do any good. Right? So this is very simple, no rocket science, happens within minutes, very, very easy thing to do. Right? Thanks again to technology, because earlier there's a lot of time used to spend on doing this sort of analysis. Now it happens in a jiffy within minutes, right? So this is all from my side, and these are my coordinates, and open for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Vinaya. We actually have a very interesting question, which also sort of sparked a thought in my mind. Is it possible that we can swing too much the other way and have an over-reliance on psychometric tests? So the question that Narasimhan is asking is essentially that when we do these behavioral and psychometric tests, and let's say there's a panel who says the results of this test are final and we can't go ahead with the candidate, do you feel that it's right for psychometric tests to be used in isolation without use of other tools that talent acquisition teams have at their disposal?
Yeah, great question. And see, the point here to understand is that you're not replacing other tools with psychometric tools, right? So if you're doing a functional test, you have to do a functional test. You're doing an interview, you have to do an interview. You have to, understand the resume of a person. So typically I say, a nurse and a commercial pilot would have same behavioral profile. In our language, we call it guardian, right? A stabilizing profile, a guardian, who's SOP driven. But you cannot interchange them, right? Because they have different academic qualification and experience that is required. So you cannot pick a guardian and say, oh, you're good to be a nurse, or pick up a guardian and say you're good to be pilot without understanding what qualifications they're bringing to the table. So psychometric assessments it's one other input in your decision-making, process. It's not making decision on our behalf. It's giving us another input, which was totally a blind spot till now for us, where we were making guesses and we were horribly going wrong, right? That's an area where we are getting now an objective information. So for example, when we go, let's say we are having some ailment. Now, one is we can make a guess, oh my God, this person might be having high sugar, because this happened, right? Someone else will say, no, this is not having high sugar. Someone will say, oh, this is abnormally high sugar. Now, what is the way out of it? The way out is get a blood test done. Correct? So we are getting a blood test done. Now, how you're going to use that blood test as a medical practitioner is up to the doctor. Right? So this is very important input in an area where we had no eyes and ears till now. Now, how you want to use it? You want to prioritize based on this. You have a small funnel, you may of talent. Then you would like to use it to understand that what are the challenges this person will face and the organization will face when this person comes in, so that you're prepared with it. If we know where the pothole is, then we can drive our car more cautiously. Correct? So this is the same funda. If you have a big funnel of candidates, then you can use it as a filtration mechanism. If you have a medium funnel, then you can use it for prioritizing. Okay, let me spend my energy first on the guys who are best fitting, then I'll move to the medium fits, then I'll move to the least fits. So it's up to you how, as a recruiter, you're going to use this in the whole process. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much. So for folks on the call, please do enter in your questions on the Q&A section rather than the webinar chat. So it's easier for us to sort of track it. So one question that has come up is how do you identify the best psychometric tools and frameworks that are out there? And as an add-on to that, does it vary if it is going to be for a tech role or for a sales role or for, let's say, for a finance or an accounting role?
Okay. See, generally psychometric assessment does not, are industry agnostic or stream agnostic, because it's like an X-ray. See, when we go for an X-ray, it does not make any difference whether we have, whether we're an engineer ourselves or whether we're uneducated or, from which geographical location we are coming, because it's going to see our bone structure. So this one is peeking into our subconscious mind, irrespective of what education, experience, and level in a hierarchy in a corporate we have, right? So it's the good ones are industry agnostic. Look out. See, the best thing I say whenever someone is doing, even when we are talking to prospect, is go and test it out. You want to evaluate 5 assessments, take those 5 assessments, let's say you are doing predictive index, you are doing Thomas, you're doing SHL, you're doing Hogan's. Go and do it. Take an assessment, take a free trial, do the assessment and see what's your user experience. See the kind of information that you're getting, how accurate it is projecting you. See if that information is coming in that form, how usable it is for your thing, your organization, right? And then whatever you feel aligned with, again, it's all about alignment. Someone may like, we have diehard fans of predictive index with us who have been last 10 years with us, and with the organization, have been last 70 years using the same tool. But, there are some others who may like X tool, a Y tool, a Z tool, or a Hogan of the world. So figure it out yourself. Couple of things is do check the reliability and validity of the tool, along with their ease of doing, the amount of time taken, and your result ROI, the result that you are getting, is it really making sense to you? It may make sense to XYZ, your friend, other recruitment partner, but is it making sense to you? Are you able to understand, or is it too difficult to understand? Right? Those are the things practically see, and then you make a call around it. There's again no rocket science in it, and there is no one tool which is all is going to serve all the purposes. For different kind of people, different people will require different kind of tools.
Great. One question that sort of sparked by one of the questions that's over here, I think that's from Radhika. She says that I'm in a mid-sized organization. How can I implement behavioral assessment and test aspects on my own? Now, just building on that question a little bit, it seems as if, especially in an environment where this testing is not as common, what can HR teams and talent acquisition specialists really do to educate the other stakeholders? Because they need to be equal partners with hiring managers in the administration of such tests, in actually evaluating candidates using a test like this. What words of advice do you have for talent acquisition team members who want to take on who want to take this on and bring this into their organizations? What should their first point of entry be?
See, first point of entry, I always believe, when I was a functional head, the best thing HR did was made me do the assessment. Even at the evaluation phase, so I remember we were 3 of us who were heading different departments, and we were made to do an assessment and ask that, well, would you like to have this kind of information before hiring someone? And when we saw the report, our own report, and we use this predictive index as a system. And I remember, I was like, wow, if this is the information I'm going to get before doing an interview, I know exactly what I'm looking for. What else do I know? I don't have to spend another 1.5 hours in trying to figure this out. And there's a one version of truth. So make them taste it. See, as line managers, as guys who are doing our functional duties, we have not come across this. We have not been subjected to this. We do not have an exposure to this, right? We do not understand that even if such a tool exists, and what sort of information you're going to get out of it. So make them do it. Even in a trial phase, include them. Say, this is something that I'm evaluating. I found it very good. Why don't you also go ahead and do it and see if it's making sense to you? I've shortlisted from 10 to 2, and these are the 2 I would like you to experience. And we have seen, there are some of our clients, hardcore industry, hardcore, small manufacturing units where nothing moves. And when they used our system for a year and a half, after that, the line managers themselves will be coming back to them, the functional heads, and telling them, boss, first give us that assessment result, then only we are going to interview a person. So the table turns the other way around. Then you don't have to push it, but there will be a pull from the organization to get this done. But do not give them PPTs, do not show them what this can do and the Taj Mahal will look like this and what will happen. Show them Taj Mahal, give them a trip to Taj Mahal.
Excellent. We actually have a few queries over here where I think people want to have a demo of this tool, and I think they're interested in this test. So for those of you who would like to test it out, please don't hesitate to reach out to Vinaya. His email address and his phone number are on the screen, so I encourage you to reach out to him and have a chat. And I see that he's writing his website as well. So please do check it out. I think you'll have a description of some of these tests, some of the concepts that Vinaya described.
You'll find a lot of sample reports and brochures out here. And if you're really seriously evaluating, please feel free to reach out to me, and and we will take it ahead, help you out.
Excellent. So we do have a couple of other questions. So one is if there's any open source tool, as I mentioned, please do reach out to Vinaya. I'm sure he'll be pleased to help you out.
Do not go for free tools and open source tools. Okay, this is not an operating system. It's like you're going to, would you like to get your blood test done, through some free, agency, or you would like to go to Path Lab and, someone who is reliable? If you have to make an operation, based on that result, you would be operated or not operated. So please go give away this mentality of, especially as an organization. Yeah, it's not your personal stuff that, you'll be spending on getting the candidates evaluated. As an organization, this is an investment. And thanks to science, this is not a huge investment anyway. This would be a fraction of the pay that you will be getting as a recruiter.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Vinaya. I know we're almost at the top of the hour right now. Just want to thank you for being on this webinar and educating us. I certainly learned a lot, and I also figured out that we have a common employer in the past. I started my career with Same Goveen as well, with one of the units of Same Goveen back in the day. However, I was hired for engineering and design, but moved into sales and marketing. So sort of flipped.
Great.
Excellent. So I would like to thank the audience for all the patience, for all the questions that are there. And we will be putting up this on our YouTube channel shortly in a few days or so. But in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please, I think you can respond to the email and we can get back to you. If you have questions for Vinaya, please do write to him on the email address that he's put on. So thanks once again. And wishing you all the best in your recruiting careers.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye. Have a nice day.